Good morning. As a researcher and social scientist, as a best-selling author of spiritual fiction books, and as an activist, having made a 48 hunger strike last summer against the genocide in Gaza in front of the European Commission headquarters in Brussels, I would like to make a statement today as just another human being on planet Earth in the first quarter of the 21st century. Last night, the Global Sumud Flotilla began to be intercepted and its crew kidnapped by the Israeli Navy as they were heading towards Gaza on a humanitarian mission. This happened while the flotilla was in the international waters, with Israel once again violating international law in full view of everyone and amid the passivity of world governments. Almost 500 non-violent activists, civil society members from 44 countries, were assaulted with impunity by a government that calls itself democratic, when paradoxically it is a renewed representation of Nazism, which perpetrated the genocide of Jews almost a century earlier. This is a declaration of war against global civil society, which is fed up with war in general and above all with the genocide perpetrated by the Zionists in Gaza. It is a declaration of war against the qualities that make us human beings and distance us from the barbarism and savagery to which war has condemned us since the dawn of time. And it is important that global civil society understands that we are at war. For us, it is a non-violent war, but a war nonetheless, because it requires courage, resilience, determination, and faith in victory. Faith and absolute confidence that as human beings on planet Earth, we will manage to stop the killing and bring the murderers before international courts to be tried for their crimes. This is why we must all mobilize in this fight for the survival of international law and the most basic human rights. That is why every decent human being with a conscience and ethical values must speak out and raise their voice publicly in the streets and on social media against these savages who are a blot on humanity. We must not forget that, according to Medicine Sans Frontières, 48% of those killed by the Israeli army in Gaza are children, and 40% were under the age of 10. This clearly indicates that the Israeli government is seeking to exterminate the Palestinian population in Gaza by eradicating their sources of future. And as a Spanish symbolist and meaning expert, José Millán, points out, the deliberate and obvious intention of Netanyahu's Nazi government to exterminate Palestinian children constitutes a violation of the last taboo that can be broken in war, that of hands off the children. It is the breaking of the last seal in the apocalypse, the Armageddon we are witnessing in Gaza. This requires all conscious and truly humane beings to take action. It obliges us to assume our responsibility as 21st century humanity on planet Earth. No one can shirk their responsibility anymore. No one can avoid taking an open and public stance on what is happening in Gaza. There is no longer room for middle ground or half measures. Either you are part of the solution to the problem and of humanity, or you are part of the problem and of the barbarians. And you are an instrumental accomplice to the murderers of children. No one can remain silent and watch any longer. No one can continue with their daily lives and activities as if nothing were happening. We must speak out publicly against the murderous Nazis, and we must do so now. We must take to the streets to protest against the new Nazism, and we must declare ourselves openly and on social media before our neighbors and friends. We must make our position clear in the face of savagery that no longer admits any justification or excuse. The flotilla to Gaza is the latest in a series of urgent calls for attention from global civil society, warning that Zionist Nazism must not be allowed to definitively destroy the last bastions of international law and human ethical conscience. If we do not act now and act strongly against apostles of evil such as Netanyahu, his ministers, and his generals, and against his accomplice Donald Trump and his bootlickers, history will judge us mercilessly for our negligence and passivity. But the worst judgment, the harshest one, will be that of our own conscience on the day of our death. We have been warned.